Hi, how are you? This is Dr. Damaris G, and this is the Mindfully Integrative Show. And I wanted to say thank you so much for joining in. And today's mindful chat is with one of my great friends. She's a speaker, a leader, and author, well, soon to be big author. And she's yoga teacher, mindful leadership, and she has been a great friend of mine. Her name is Lorretta Turner, and I can't wait for you guys to meet and get to talk and chat with her. Hey, how's it going today, Loretta?
It's going great. It is a wonderful Friday where I'm at in the world, which is San Diego, and I am equally grateful to be connecting with you. And in this way, I know that we've known each other for a long time, and obviously I've moved across the country, but it's always so exciting to see the different ways that I stay in touch with people, and this is really exciting.
I know. I mean, it's like I find it with all the changes with like, this past year, it's like the love and hate for videos, but now I feel like I've connected so much. I can connect with anyone anywhere at this point. It's like, okay, there's no excuse for me not to find some time or space. But I'm so glad I found some time with you and we got to connect for this podcast. So I always kind of start the show and kind of saying, what is a little story or something that people don't know about you? A little fun fact.
It's so funny. I share this all the time. So I'm sure that people do know this about me, but always share it no matter what. Originally from New Jersey, Jersey girl.
Yay!
Moved
We're Jersey
yeah,
girls.
moved out to San Diego 4 years now. Think I'll stay here long term. Really do love it out here. And with being a Jersey girl, what comes with that is God, I'm a huge, huge pizza fan. I'm a diehard New York Giants fan. I have a very aggressive sweet tooth, love a good cannoli. um, yeah, those are just some fun facts about me. Always love sharing on like where my roots are.
Yeah, and you love pizza so much, don't you have a tattoo?
I do have a pizza tattoo, and if it was in more of an accessible place, I would show it to you, but
Right, right,
it
right.
would take some
No,
moving
just
around.
no, 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 it's just a joke. But yes, totally. Yep, we share that love for pizza as I try to not have it as often, but I do like it. So overall, this podcast is about combining traditional and integrative health and how things have kind of transformed in your life and your story to be better, do better, and highlighting, inspiring people like yourself. Now, would you like to share a little bit about your story and how you kind of came into, being a teacher in many ways?
Absolutely. Gosh, so much story to tell. Um, but when I think about my story, like in a rear view mirror, I see now that like the things that make me me are that I am a Black woman, right? Woman of color, high achieving person who values being outdoors. I love being outside. I'm naturally an outdoors woman. And as a Libra, right, as a person with an October birthday, I'm all about the scales. I'm all about harmony. I'm all about justice, right? And always wanting to be on the right side of history. I am always up for learning, and I always get so excited for opportunities to be able to talk about myself in the different ways that I describe myself, because it really wasn't until I tapped into mindfulness and different mindfulness practices that I was able to see myself in these ways, right?
Yeah.
Before discovering mindfulness, I would never be able to describe myself in the ways that I just described because I just didn't know myself well enough. So, yeah, I just really appreciate this opportunity to be able to have this conversation and to be able to again look in the rearview mirror, look at my history and say, okay, this is who I am now because of all these things I've gone through. And so thinking about my story and mindfulness and you know, what sparked this journey for me, I started my mindfulness journey in 2009, so a little while ago. I was all of like I think 17 years old. I found yoga. I found yoga when I went to college, and it's funny because I had been a dancer all my life, so I had body awareness, right? I knew my body pretty well in terms of having coordination, and just understanding like how to turn and twist and jump. But yoga took that like body awareness like to the next level. It went from just like knowing my body to just like again, learning to know myself. And there was this huge shift and this huge unlocking in me, and being able to move my body and stretch and balance and do all these things. And also with that, start to understand my own emotions, my own habits, my own triggers. I got introduced to pranayama, breathing techniques. And yeah, I mean, I was just so intrigued. I was just so in love. Like, I remember I went to my first yoga class with, roommates, classmates, people that I had just met at school. And they were like, okay, yeah, that's fun. Like, maybe I'll go again. And I'm like, I need to go tomorrow. Like, I just could not get enough. I was just so intrigued, and it drew me in. And yeah, I'm sure I'll talk more about where it's led me, but that's where it began.
Oh, well, you and I are very close because of yoga and mindfulness, and it's something that I feel like you can't even, it's part of who we are, right? And it's
Mm.
part of an extreme part of our journey, and where have come. For yourself, I feel like your story has obviously different levels to it, and parts that are, very inspirational for many to hear, and people do need to hear. And I appreciate you as a minority Black woman discussing being successful, taking the time to grow, and especially in a lot of the changes in the world that have come, and where it has been for you. How have, from the different steps for you, would you like to go into that? One from maybe the beginning of this yoga journey to where you are now. I mean, you're a master's degree in, you can discuss that too.
Yeah.
Highly
Yeah,
educated woman.
I can definitely touch on that. And I think you bring up such an excellent point that, you appreciate that I'm having this conversation about mindfulness from the perspective of a black woman. And I thought about that a lot last year. What does it really mean for me to be a Black woman in this country, especially, with so much focus and so much attention on Black lives. Last year, I felt like I was having so many conversations with people of all backgrounds, right? Other Black people, white men, people from all backgrounds. And it was just so interesting to hear what people thought about Black women, what they were supposed to be, what they were supposed to be doing, what Black women thought. And I just got so like frustrated, because I'm like, I'm none of the, like, a lot of in those conversations, I realized like the things that people were saying about Black women. It was just like, I'm none of those things. Right. So, my work over the last year, 2 years has just been really redefining what does it mean for me what does it being a Black woman mean for me? And in thinking about my mindfulness journey, I grew up in a household with Black individuals, right? My siblings and I were Black. Both of my parents are Black, cousins, aunts, uncles, come from a big Black family. And it's, we valued healthcare growing up. Like, I was blessed, and I would even say privileged in that way, that I had parents that valued healthcare. We always had coverage. You know, Going to the doctor was super normalized for us. And there were also challenges in that too, because going to the doctor was very normalized for us. Taking medication was very normalized for us. And again, a blessing and a privilege to have access to healthcare. But in the household I grew up in, it was very normal to just take medicine all the time. And so when I went away to college and when I found yoga, it was a big shift. And, just being completely candid, I've struggled with asthma my entire life. Yeah, I was born with asthma and just respiratory issues. And so medication was always a cure for that. And then when I found yoga, when I found pranayama, breathing techniques, my asthma shifted, right? I started to heal myself from the inside out. I realized that,
Completely. I bet.
yeah, literally, I realized that the lungs and the muscles around the lungs were muscles, and they could be strengthened, they could be lengthened, they could be worked out so that I could be a stronger breather. And I remember like coming home and explaining to my parents that I didn't want to see the doctor about asthma anymore. I didn't want to necessarily be having to take medications and having to go on steroids, right? Like, I was very, very, very confident that I could heal my asthma with yoga. And I just remember that at first, it's funny now because my mom goes to yoga every week. So it took years and years of having to convince my family like that this woo-woo crazy yoga stuff works. But there's definitely a barrier there, right? There was a barrier there in having parents who were very healthcare focused. And also, I think just coming from a Black family where you don't really see yoga normalized or mindfulness normalized. They were just like, what the hell are you talking about? You're going to use yoga to clear your asthma. You better be carrying your inhaler. You know, that was
Yeah,
the
yeah.
conversation for a long time. So yeah, in thinking about, you know, the background and where I come from, it was just, there were some challenges in going on this mindfulness journey. But yeah, I just kept with it, and I kept just, you know, studying and learning from others. And honestly, I didn't see a lot of other Black women to learn from. I mean, a lot of my mentors in the beginning of my journey were white women, people that you typically saw at yoga classes, people that you typically saw at Lululemon. That's who I was connected with in the beginning. That's who I was following, and I learned a lot from them rather. But the beautiful thing is that I was learning these wonderful practices in meditation, um, and mindfulness from them, but then also recognizing like, I am a Black woman. So how do I come back to my community? How do I circle back around to people that identify like I do and start to normalize this? And it's been such a blessing to be where I am now. Living in San Diego. So on top of mindfulness and yoga, I became a yoga teacher. I'm a meditation teacher now. I spent a lot of years, 10 years teaching yoga. And I still do that. But my other passion, my other career is in nonprofits. And so I've been able to, over the last couple of years, merge all that together. Living in San Diego now, I have a master's in nonprofit management and leadership. I work full time as a grants manager, serving primarily communities that are people of color, people that are dealing with poverty and crime and just all sorts of challenges in their neighborhood, right? I'm giving back in that way, supporting those communities with, a lot of different resources. So I do that work. And then on top of that, I have merged my mindfulness into a business. I am a mindfulness and leadership coach. A lot of my work is actually focused with working with women of color, Black women, especially people who are in the nonprofit sector or people who are just doing community work. Just merging all of that together to say, look, mindfulness is important, yoga is important, meditation's important. It's not just for white people who go to Lululemon. We can use different tools, different techniques in mindfulness and bring them into our communities to help our communities heal. We can bring them into our professional spaces so that we, as an organization or as a group of leaders, can be doing the best work possible. So I know that was a lot, but
No,
I think
I
that
feel like
answers
it's
your
just,
question.
yeah, no, I feel like that just even touches the surface of someone that does know you and how much you have accomplished and how much you bring up such a great point as a Black woman. I mean, as myself, I'm a multiracial Black and Spanish, minority woman. And I feel like it's so not touched upon how much meditation, mindfulness, and then also just being a highly educated, successful leader that you are in the space. It's so important because people, I'm so glad that you're on this show and on this podcast, discussing things that, we don't talk about, the reason, a different, path of health and also a different way of feeling and understanding your body and coming in between, into self, for our, minority women and minority groups. It's like people don't discuss that, and we don't really talk about things. We just know XYZ and that's it. And I really think it makes a big discussion. And on top of that, you're also trying to give back to the community in so many ways. I mean, we worked together with the yoga, and you were doing a lot of nonprofits with one national company, and you still do work with them. But I feel like you had done so much, and I'd love for you to discuss further, even more so, what you've done, not just in your mindfulness leadership, but previous to that, how you've grown. Like, do you feel, not just from your move, but have you grown even the last 2 years since you've done your program or your
Hmm.
growth? I feel like you have grown so much in the last 10 years.
Yeah, thank you for recognizing that. And I'd be happy to share what my growth process has looked like. So
Or anything you'd like to share. You don't have to set growth process, but where you'd like to go with this.
sure. Yeah, just thinking about this journey. Again, I really appreciate these opportunities just to talk about what's happened, because I get to kind of process what's happened in different ways. So what's come up for me these last few years is obviously like mindfulness and yoga and meditation are values for me. I've, been doing this work for 10 years now. Um, but something that I fell into as well, like in having worked in nonprofits, that was like my big girl job, right? Like my 9 to 5 job. Love nonprofits, love community work. And what I realized that I actually love about working in nonprofits, or honestly just about working anywhere, is I love leadership. I love the idea of just coming to understand yourself through the lens of leadership. And so when I dedicated my life to learning about leadership the last few years, that's when the growth happened. That's when it all changed. I had moved out here in 2017, didn't really have a plan. And I'll be like totally candid. I was kind of being irresponsible, like blew through my money, didn't have somewhere to live, didn't have a job lined up. And the way it just unfolded is I decided that I wanted to commit myself to learning about nonprofits, signed up for a master's program that was nonprofit focused, nonprofit management focused, but there was also a leadership component in it. And it was in that program where I just really got to learn about myself, because my leadership philosophy is leadership isn't just what you do, right? Leadership isn't just your title or your job description or who's underneath you. Leadership is who you are. And the work that I do now is coming into different spaces and helping people understand leadership, not just your leadership style, but like, who are you, right? If you were to step in a room right now and be invited or be required to have to lead a group, what does that look like for you, right? What are your habits? What are your strengths? What are the things you're scared of? What are the unique and just, yeah, what are the unique ways that you can mobilize people? And it was in that program where my growth happened, because there were so many pieces of me, the version of me that moved to California, the version of me that was living in New Jersey, the version of me that became a yoga teacher, right? So many versions of me all came to this one space and say, Loretta, look at yourself, look at your entire life, and use all that you are, use all that you've become, and use that to become the leader that you've always been. And so again, it was in studying leadership that I really found growth, because I had to look at myself in the mirror and say, maybe people don't follow you because you're abrasive, right? Maybe people don't follow you because you're not clear. Maybe people do follow you because you're funny, right? You've got a good sense of humor. And so, yeah, to answer your question, that's where a lot of the growth happened, taking the time to study leadership, to understand leadership. And as I was studying leadership, I was also bringing in mindfulness. That was the beautiful blend, like being able to come into these spaces, like being in an academic space, studying leadership, and then also say, hi, I'm a yoga teacher. I want to add elements of mindfulness into this. So it's been a wonderful journey, blending mindfulness, blending leadership, and then being in the position now to be able to go back out in the world and offer that, right? I offer trainings, I offer one-on-one coaching, I offer group coaching, I offer workshops, I offer consulting. I do a lot of work around helping people understand leadership through mindfulness, through yoga, through meditation. And it's great. Every time I get the opportunity to teach someone else, it's also still a learning process for me. Like the example I'll give is last month on my socials, on my social media, the theme that I was working with was accountability, right? Accountability is a huge element of being a good leader, right? You want people to follow you. You want people to listen to you. You got to be accountable. You got to do what you say you were going to do, right? And accountability is not just something that we do. My philosophy on it is accountability is something that you be, right? Something that you become. And in the process of being and becoming, you have to be mindful, right? You have to look at your BS. You have to look at the ways that you're blaming. You have to look at yourself and observe yourself and practice mindfulness and becoming accountable. And so it was beautiful. All last month, I talked about accountability. I wrote about accountability. We had conversations about accountability. I feel like I really supported my community and educated my community on that. And in the process, as I was producing content to share, I was learning and growing along with my community. So all that to say, I
That's
just
even
love the
beautiful.
journey. Huh?
And it's beautiful that you were able to kind of grow with them too. Like, and it's like it grows onto that. So you were able to touch them, but then they even brought it back, and you weren't even trying for that, but you were able to open up and grow too further, even more.
Yeah, and that's what I love about the journey that I'm on. I love the work that I do. Being in the seat of a teacher in many different spaces also always puts me in the seat as student. You know, the work that I get to do requires that I work with people of all different backgrounds. And although I am the guide or the teacher or the facilitator, I'm at the same time learning so much from the people that I get to work with. It's really wonderful.
What well what energizes you every day? I mean, I know like you have some daily habits that you do. I know I've
Mm.
seen you talk about it. I know we do them. I mean, you and I being pretty creatures of habit in a sense now, but what are things that you do that get you energized and ready to go for your
Ooh, what energizes me? What energizes me? Okay. It's so funny. So like the
or
first thing,
inspires you? It doesn't if energize, inspires, whatever that is for you.
yeah. What inspires and energizes me? Actually, the first thing that came to mind was like chocolate, chocolate
Oh
energizes
yeah.
me.
Well, that's what we do.
And
Dark chocolate.
sometimes in answering
How can
that
it not
question,
be?
huh?
How can it not be dark
I
chocolate?
know. Ugh, I might
Mm.
have chocolate after this. Yeah, when I
Yes.
heard you ask that question, my mind immediately went to thinking about myself as like an organism, right? Like as one of my plants. Like, ooh, like what nourishes me?
What
It's
nourishes you? Yeah.
chocolate, it's sunshine, it's getting out into the ocean. It's conversations like this inspire me. Exercising, moving my body inspires me.
Doing all the work you've done.
Yeah, just doing all the work that I get to do, studying, reading, learning, all of that fills me up. And then when I think about who inspires me, honestly, most recently, the people that really inspire me are people that have faced adversity and despite that are thriving, they are being resilient, they are still showing up. When I have conversations with clients or just with people wherever in the world who tell me their stories, they tell me where they've come from, they tell me some of the stuff they've seen and some of the stuff that they've gone through, and they're still executive directors or they're still parents who are, raising beautiful children, or they're still changing the world, changing the community in one way or the other. That for me is just like hell yes. And it always inspires me in this way of like, Loretta, you can do anything you set your mind to because look at these people that are really doing some powerful work in the world and they have had the worst cards dealt to them.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah,
Those
the
are the people
card.
that inspire me.
No, I mean, I could not agree with you more. I feel like the other people make you better. And then our cards were dealt for us, our stories are there, but then knowing that we're helping impact them too, and they're impacting us, it's like a, back and forth, positive
Mhm.
like circle, I guess. Um, well, I enjoy always having you on, but I'd love for you to kind of talk a little bit um, about you always have a beautiful way of your breaths and your dharmas and just kind of getting within. And we were talking a little bit about how your growth has happened. So do you have just a little mindful uh, tip or mindful dharma for us before
Ooh, yeah.
we transition? I mean, I'd love for everyone to get to know you more and reach out to you um, and check you out. But
So a little mindful tip or a little mindful dharma. Let me think. Let me think. Let me think. Um,
you always have a lot of self discovery and wonderful words of wisdom. So I feel like people can catch you online, but being that you have come through, you talk about other people coming through adversity. You have come through a lot. You've dealt with so much, and I don't think you always see that too. You do so
that's
much
true.
for others, but you have been through a lot yourself, and I don't even think you even dived into it fully here. We're just kind of touching the
Yeah, just
surface,
scratching the surface.
right?
Okay, so what would I leave people with? What mindful tip would I get in thinking about everything that we shared, or everything that I shared in today? So like my motto, right? The motto of my business, the thing that I tell people all the time is that it only works if you do. Um, that's my quote, right? That's my thing. Like at the end of the day, like you want to get it done, you got to do the work. It only works if you do. And there's an additional part of that that I like to also share, right? So it only works if you do, but you can only really do the work if you are able to work. And what I mean by that is if you are able to function. And so my mindfulness tip in whoever's listening to this, if you've got a goal in mind, something you're, working towards, striving towards, just, putting your heart and soul into it, remember that it only works if you do, right? You got to show up. You got to do the work. It's no one else's responsibility except yours. And to make sure that you're working and doing the work, to make sure that you're functioning, make sure that you're doing everything that you need to be doing so that you feel full, so that you feel fulfilled, so that you feel just supported. Um, and thinking about all the success that I've had, moving across the country with literally nothing, and then, turning around, getting my master's, becoming valedictorian, top of my class, starting a business, all that I do.
You
It
say
really
it so
came down.
lightly. You went from, you were an, executive director of one business in New Jersey from a nonprofit, came over. You also, even your family lost their home. I mean, you have been through a
Yeah.
ton. And then you go, oh, just valedictorian. No big deal. All right. Just you brush it
Yeah.
off very
Yeah.
lightly, very light about it, but you've done a plenty. A book is in there somewhere. I know I'm trying to write
Eventually.
mine. So you got to write yours now.
Yeah. And thinking about that journey and the adversity that I faced, what really worked for me is like just being able to look in the mirror and say, if you want it, you got to do the work. You got to really do the work. And I've been, meditating and journaling pretty much every day. And more recently in those meditation sessions, I'm having a conversation with a version of me that had just moved out here, who was really struggling, who was down and out of money, couldn't get a job. I actually got fired from a job. And so I've been having conversations with her recently and looking back at that time, and that version of me knew deep down, like, if you want it, you got to work for it. You just got to do it. You just got to put one step forward every day. You got to put the work in. It only works if you do. And what I also realize now when I look back on that time was I wasn't healthy, right? It was so hard for me. Like the version of me in 2017 envisioned where I am now. Like I could see it. I knew it was possible. I knew I wanted it, but it was so hard to get there, like grueling uphill climb. And I can look back on that now and be like, it was so hard because I wasn't taking care of myself, right? So this idea of it only works if you do, only works if you're taking care of yourself. I was drinking a ton. I was, just not pulling in the healthiest of relationships. I was people pleasing. I was putting other people's needs first. Just like shooting myself in the foot all the time, like setting myself up for success and then saying, okay, well, how can I ruin this? Right. How can I make this worse? And so the work for me for a while was just healing that, right? Getting my drinking under control, getting the partying under control, right? I moved here in 2017 at 25 and was looking for a good time, which I had, but it was getting in the way of me wanting to do what I wanted to do. So getting that under control, cutting people out of my life, right? Having to drop some friendships, having to drop some relationships, putting boundaries up, moving out of places that weren't healthy for me. So I guess that's my mindful tip. If you really want to do the work, if you really want to achieve something and go after something, trust yourself that you can do it. Know that it requires work and know that you've got to be taking care of yourself so that you have the energy and just the power to do
I seriously love that because each
it.
and every day I talk about having to take care of yourself and be healthy through and through. Obviously, this, as I say it on a regular basis, you're putting the work in. Obviously, you put the work in and you're letting others know that. Um, and it comes from within, you got to take care of you, put
Yep.
that oxygen mask on
Yep.
and, and dig deep, it's not a 1-2, it's not a quick fix.
Yep.
But, and you've done that and you're showing that each and every day and you show up and I love you for that. And I know that you are guiding so many people And I can't wait for them to reach out to you and for them to know you more. I'll have you on the podcast again in the show. And I know that we'll be
Yay.
doing further, conferences and such. But
Yeah, because
how
there's so
can
much more to talk about.
I know there is. And I just would love for those to know how to reach you at this time. And I'll have them in the show notes also.
Cool. Yeah, I appreciate that. So, the best place to reach me is probably on Instagram. My handle is Loretta, Loretta, dot, and then leads, Leads, like leadership. And that's a great place to reach me. That's where I'm most active. So if you've enjoyed listening to this and like my mindfulness tip, this idea of it only works if you do, like if that resonates with you, like I highly recommend go to my Instagram because I'm talking about that stuff all the time. I post several times a week. It is September 3rd. I haven't actually announced my theme for this month, but this month is going to be about connection and networking, right? So you can tune into my social media to just get like at the very least a weekly dose of information on topics that are important. On my Instagram, I do a monthly meditation. I write a monthly blog. I have live sessions where people can drop in and have conversations with me. I put prompts out on my Instagram story so you can get in there and answer the prompts and we can keep talking, right? So it's a great resource. It's very interactive. And I'm on LinkedIn too. LinkedIn is another place where you can reach me. My full name and where you can find me is Loretta Turner. And just similar to Instagram, LinkedIn is just a place where I share resources. Sometimes they're not always mine. I like to share other people's stuff there too. So those are the best places to reach me, LinkedIn and Instagram. I do have a website, lorettaturner.com, if you'd like to learn more about my services.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you being on the show today, and listeners are going to get a value of information, a wealth of knowledge. So thanks so much for your time. And I really love you to death. So thank you so much for being with us.
Love you too. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you everyone for listening.
Of course. And so each one of you, thanks again for joining in on the Mindfully Integrative Show, and make sure that each day you find a mindful way. Have a great day. Bye.